Welcome to the Midnight Files, when nature strikes. I'm your host, Brian. Tonight, we're venturing into the heart of one of nature's deadliest and most relentless rampages. A tragedy so vast and unforgiving, it left a permanent scar on American history. This is not the tale of a murder hiding in the shadows. This is a story of the sky itself turning savage. This is the true account of the tri-state tornado of 1925. A natural disaster so destructive that it crossed 3 states in a single afternoon, claiming hundreds of lives and forever altering the landscape of the Midwest. It was March 18th, 1925, a Wednesday, a day that began with the kind of stillness that only the heartland knows. The sunrise was cloaked in gray. Southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, and southwestern Indiana woke to a sky that looked undecided. Beneath it, the routine of American life unfolded. Fields were being readied for planting. Children walked dirt roads to one-room schoolhouses. Housewives opened windows to let the early spring air in. But high above that quiet morning, a volatile cocktail of atmospheric forces was assembling. Meteorologists today know that those in 1925 could not. A deep low-pressure system was moving east across the plains, dragging a cold front behind it. At the same time, a warm, moist air mass had surged north from the Gulf of Mexico. In between, the jet stream curved sharply, acting as a conveyor belt of chaos. These ingredients, when mixed together, don't simply create weather, they create monsters. On this day, that monster took the form of a single, unstoppable tornado. Just after 1 p.m., the twister touched down in Reynolds County, Missouri. What began as a distant funnel soon ballooned into a churning black mass nearly a mile wide. Unlike ordinary tornadoes, which often snake, hop, or vanish after a few miles, this one planted itself into the earth like a blade and kept carving away. The tornado tore through small Missouri communities, Annapolis and Frona, leaving behind shredded trees, flattened barns, and the first of what would become a staggering death toll. The storm flung debris so violently that it impaled tree trunks and left entire homes from their foundations. As the tornado reached the Mississippi River, it showed no signs of slowing. With a fury that seemed sentient, it crossed into Illinois near Gorham, and the true horror began. Gorham, a small railroad town, was the first Illinois community to face the tornado's full wrath. In under 2 minutes, it was unrecognizable. More than 30 people died. Trains were hurled from their tracks. Water towers were crumpled like paper. But the worst came next. Murphysboro, a larger town of around 12,000, was directly in the storm's path. The tornado struck at about 2:30 p.m., with schools still in session and businesses still open. A wall of wind and debris smashed into the town like a freight train. Bricks, glass, timber, and metal became lethal projectiles. Factories were leveled. Schools collapsed. Entire neighborhoods were obliterated. In just 10 minutes, 234 people were dead. It remains the deadliest single-city tornado toll in U.S. history. In the rural outskirts, farms disappeared. Livestock vanished. Fields were scoured, bare down to the dirt. The soil ripped from the earth. Families huddled in root cellars or clung to fence posts. Many sucked into the air and crushed beneath timbers. DeSoto was next. A school building collapsed as students screamed for their parents. Rescue workers pulled survivors from beneath rubble with their bare hands. Then came West Frankfort. Families heard the roar, a sound like 1,000 trains, and fled. Many didn't make it. When the storm passed, the town was a mosaic of ash bricks, and silence. Across Illinois, communications broke down. Telegraph lines were gone. Phone exchanges destroyed. Towns couldn't reach each other, and rescuers had no idea the scope of what was unfolding. Survivors walked for miles to find help. Newspapers the next day would carry headlines more suited for wartime. Towns erased, hundreds dead, thousands injured. By the time the tornado entered Indiana around 4 p.m., it had carved a 170-mile path. It plowed through the countryside with continued ferocity. In Griffin and Owensville, people saw a black wall bearing down on them and had seconds to react. Homes were scattered like matchsticks. In Princeton, one of Indiana's largest losses of life occurred. Around 45 people died. And then, finally, after 3.5 relentless hours, the tornado lifted near Petersburg. The ground fell silent, the sky calmed, but beneath it, nothing was the same. The final toll was staggering: 695 confirmed deaths and over 2,000 injured. Nearly 15,000 homes were destroyed. But numbers tell only part of the story. Families were decimated. Entire towns faced the impossible task of rebuilding. Rail lines, telephone poles, and roads had to be entirely reconstructed. Rescue efforts were heroic. Locals digging through rubble without rest. Priests administering last rites in the ruins of their churches. Red Cross workers arriving by handcar and horseback. In the days that followed, makeshift morgues were created. Identification was difficult. Some victims had been carried miles by the wind. Families searched for loved ones among lines of the dead. Mass graves were dug, where morgues couldn't hold the toll. The nation was shocked. The scale of the disaster forced a reckoning. Better storm tracking, communication infrastructure, and emergency planning all became subjects of national debate. But even today, a tornado like the one that struck in 1925 could overwhelm modern systems. Meteorologists now believe it was an F5 tornado, the most violent classification, with winds exceeding over 300 miles per hour. The tri-state tornado was not just powerful, it was unprecedented. The largest continuous tornado track in recorded history. No other tornado has come close to its deadly march. And yet, even with all of our technology, no one can still say when or where such a force might strike again. The tornado didn't just leave a path of physical destruction, it left deep psychological scars. Survivors describe being haunted by the sound, the roar of wind, the screams, the silence afterward, and entire communities struggled with grief. Children who lost parents, parents who lost children. Stories emerge of people who rebuilt their homes, but never again trusted the sky. In the months that followed, doctors noted what we now understand as post-traumatic stress, nightmares, anxiety, sudden panic at the sound of thunder. The tri-state tornado was not just a storm. It was a trauma that lived on in those who endured it. Even a century later, meteorologists still study the tri-state tornado. No other tornado in recorded history has matched its combination of speed, size, duration, and devastation. It traveled 219 miles on the ground. That's not just long, that's unheard of. The average tornado stays on the ground for only a few minutes. This one defied expectations at every turn. Its sheer longevity has sparked debate. Was it truly a single tornado, or a family tornado spawned by a same supercell? Modern analysis leans toward the former. It was one unbroken catastrophic twister. Its legacy remains not just in the damage it caused, but in the way it reshaped how we forecast, track, and prepare for storms. The tri-state tornado wasn't just a storm, it was a reaper on the wind, a force that tore families apart. It destroyed communities, and it rewrote history with a single jagged line across a map. Thank you for joining me tonight on the Midnight Files, When Nature Strikes. If tonight's story has moved you, subscribe, leave a review, hit the like button. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and always watch the skies. Good night.